Fences are like signs. Or they can be. Okay. Right now, the city does have in its municipal code some references to fences, and they started out in public works and came to Planning Commission. The Planning Commission reviewed a number of drafts. We looked at different ordinances from other communities, and this is intended to address the issues that have arisen within the last 6 to 9 months.
No, actually longer than
Okay. So what we did in the ordinance is to strike some of the existing language and to add more clarity by adding additional language. I can walk through the ordinance on the second page, section 2. We have a definition for what a fence is. We have definitions for yard, and front yard, rear yard, and side yard. On top of page 3, we have a diagram showing various lots with different configuration of buildings and garages, and what would be considered a front yard, rear yard, side yard, and a side yard on the street side. And these are necessary because what we do is we regulate the height of fences, and the height is going to vary if you're in a front yard, side yard, or rear yard.
Based on a vision triangle as you're turning the corner and things like that.
Correct. By reference, we're adopting attachment A. And we do have more information about fences in terms of what fences this would apply to. A fence less than 30 inches in height would not have to be in conformance with this requirement. We have a definition of how you measure the height of a fence, because apparently that's been an issue in the past. We have construction specifications for the height and the width and the orientation, materials, and vertical support, and trellises and arbors. Kind of highlight in the front yard, we're calling for rather low fences. On the side yard, they can be a little bit taller. On the rear yard, they can be up to 6 feet in height. It also depends if you're in a residential district or a commercial or industrial district. On the following page, we have language referring to where fences might occur. We have references to the property boundary line, to utility lines, to easements, drainage easements. And then we have a diagram, and this refers to a stepped fence where it's on a slope. How you measure where the average height is. Between posts can't exceed 8 feet, and you measure the height of the fence at the midpoint. Under subparagraph E, swimming pools, there is an association, the Association of Pool and Spa Professionals. They work with ANSI, American National Standards Institute, and they develop specific standards for swimming pools. And rather than copy all that and bring it into this document, we just make reference to it. And a copy of that standard would be available at City Hall here for people to take a look at and for Ward to refer to. Tennis courts and other sports facilities, the size or the height of the fence can be up to 12 feet. Again, that would have to occur in the backyard, it couldn't occur in the front yard, side yard, or rear yard. And then we have standards for temporary fencing and barbed wire fencing and electric fencing. And the last item is maintenance. Fence shall be maintained in a structurally sound and attractive manner. So, here again, that was a brief overview, and we can talk about any of these in more detail.
Okay, initial discussion by the commission.
Yes, Your Honor, this bore out of Public Works, and I was chairman. The existing fence ordinance that we have is very short and very brief, and there's not much to it. 6 feet, a couple of definitions on where you put it on a lot line, that's about it. What we have done then is set up a ordinance, which is really, there's nothing in it, that allows for neighbors to fight with each other regarding fences. We saw one tonight. In fact, we also saw tonight a listing of 20, 30 homes that do not even apply, that don't even meet our very simple existing fence ordinance. What happens when we have fences around town, there's fences, there's a pretty side of a fence and an ugly side of a fence. We have a lot of fences around town. The pretty side is facing into the property owner, and the ugly side goes to the neighbor and such. I mean, that leads to a lot of battles between two neighbors. But what we do when two neighbors have a complaint about fences, like with the Ray Nipple case today, is that we basically refer to the courts to settle it. And we stay out of that, which allows two neighbors to fight amongst each other. And there's examples in town where people move because of this battle and such. I find it bad to have set up a system where our regulations force people into neighbors into fighting with something. My thoughts were, if we have a fence ordinance that we can all live with, one neighbor puts a fence up there, it meets these regulations, and the other neighbor can agree that it looks nice and applicable, and there shouldn't be any arguments that need to be fought in court. That was my hope, and that's what hope that this ordinance provides. Thank you.
Other discussion. I'm looking at page 1 where it has the trellis shown,
Yeah.
and then on the bottom there for exhibit 2, the maximum fence height. I'm wondering if the side yard interior lot and the side yard street lot should be reversed. Because the street lot should be the shorter of the two, would be my guess, as you're coming around the corner on the street, turning on another street. You don't want a 6-foot fence to have to see, Am I right?
You're right. That is incorrect.
So the 2 side yards are transposed?
Right. So exhibit 2, side yard interior lot should be side yard street side.
I agree with Bill, especially on orientation. It sounds almost minuscule, but what's the ugly side of the fence and where does it belong? If you're going to make an ugly side, you're going to have to live with it on your side. The remediation for that is build a fence that's covered on both sides and then nobody has to deal with it. But if you don't put that in here, it's going to be a bone of contention. Couple of questions. On page 1 under vertical support specs, what was the reasoning behind the 24 inches in width and more than 8 inches above the top of the highest point of the joint fence?
Dave Wortweiler looked at the initial draft and he made some recommended changes, and this is one of them. And the thought was, not only would this apply to skinny fences, these specs would apply to wide masonry walls that would act as a fence.
The reason I bring it up is Romano's new decorative wall in compliance with this? How big are those support posts?
I've not measured them, but I don't believe they're more than 24 inches wide.
And how tall above the fence itself? Sorry?
What about Nelson Young, too?
Yeah.
They're common.
Romano's fence would not meet the height requirements for the front yard.
And when we're measuring this 8 inches above the top of the highest point of the adjoining fence, if the fence is in waves, as long as that wave comes up and meets the support post, then it's not above the fence, it's. In I-1, one course of barbed wire in the industrial zone, do we have any fences, and I'm thinking wastewater right now, that have the curved top with the 3 barbed wire strands across?
Yeah, there.
I meant to drive by there this morning, and I'm pretty sure
Where's
that
the
there's,
fence?
Yeah, it's that angle with more than one row.
that's a pretty common construction. And I'm thinking in industrial zoning, this one course of barbed wire may not be what some deem sufficient. We certainly don't want barbed wire in residential. I've seen that too.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with I don't understand the significance of the 8 inches below the fence. I saw higher ones, and they didn't look offensive to me. I'm looking in the Garfield area. And beyond that, matter of fact, there's some older homes that carried columns. That didn't seem offensive to me. What would be the reason to have them lower? Just to give it more of a,
It's basically a design consideration, aesthetics. You know,
You can see at some
or it
point-
could be something more.
Somebody wanting to make a point in putting flagpoles for his fence supports, you know, the 18 or 20 feet.
Right.
There's nothing like that.
My biggest question is, there's no grandfathering language in here, which means when this ordinance would be passed, I can only begin to believe we will have a war with how many fences will not be compliant. So I think we do have to consider some grandfathering. And I noticed that you took out an old grandfathering from the original language, but I don't think the city wants to be in the position of basically having everybody redo their fences.
I agree, Your Honor. I didn't realize there was no grandfathering clause. There should be. This is for everything going forward.
And that old grandfathering went back 28 years. And my thought was a lot of those fences are now gone. And do we change the grandfather language to now?
And then the old language also indicated that if the property is sold, then the fence may need to be conformed. There could be incidences where, you know, somebody just, there's a nice wrought iron fence or
Especially
something.
30 days after closing.
Yeah. Anyway, that's an issue I think that is definitely necessary to be dealt with.
I suggest we go back with the grandfather to April 10th, 1979, and leave it at that.
And then just the first sentence?
Yeah, I mean, most of our fence issues, when we really get down to the dirty of the fence issues, it's not the new ones. It's not the ones that are already there. People already live with it. They've already had it down. The neighbors are already fighting it. They've already gone to court. You can't do much about that.
If we
Well, let's stop all the new battles which are occurring on a daily basis, or not daily, a monthly basis out there.
If we grandfather to adoption, don't we by inference bring all of those fences along?
Yeah,
Yep.
So we don't need to make
Yeah,
it
so we could
79
just-
inch.
we could
Oh,
just make
sure.
it this, the
Whatever you
date,
want,
date of adoption.
whatever it's made is, August, well, whatever, 6. That should be
Yeah,
council.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was one concern. I am sitting, it's the maximum fence height, and what my concern is, I understand why we don't want really high front yard fences. And I understand the visual necessity of a side yard, but are we accommodating, a lot of people put fences in for dogs, that we've got an adequate fence if someone has a large dog and wants to fence in their backyard. That, I don't know if we're accommodating that.
6 feet?
But a side yard, a street side yard is 3 feet. And, you know, it would be back from the corner a ways if you were fencing just your backyard. But anyway, I just, there are a lot of big dogs in this community.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to make sure we're dealing with that.